So, Matthew, Free State of Jones, there is not, I don't think you're going to be seeing a more interesting story on screen this year. It's first of all, true.
Yep.
Never been told. I mean, it's been told, but it's a pretty obscure story. So Newton Knight, tell us about him.
Newton Knight was a man who lived in southeast Mississippi, all right, leading up to the Civil War. Had a farm, had a wife, had a kid, kind of wanted to be left well enough alone. The Confederates did what they call a 10% tax in kind during the Civil War, where they come by a household, you give 10% of your goods, 10% of your grain, what have you, and it goes to the Confederate soldiers. Well, Newt wanted to be left well enough alone. They took his mom's donkey, I believe. And they were like, well, how can you take 10% of a donkey? This is BS. So he started to defend his own family and his neighbor's household. And then he enlisted in the Confederacy and swore he'd never fire a shot on behalf of the Confederacy because he didn't believe in the war that they were fighting and what they were fighting for. Well, a couple of circumstances happened without giving the whole movie away. His nephew comes and finds him. His nephew gets shot in the line of fire. He finds out about the 20 Negro law at that time, which said for every 20 Negroes you own, if you're a plantation owner, you don't have to fight in the Civil War. If you own 40, you and your eldest male of kin don't have to, and so on. And he looked around at all of his yeoman farmer buddies and said, do you own any slaves? And they're like, no. He goes, me neither. He's like, I'm not fighting this war. It's a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. I'm out of here. So he deserts. Well, you know what they did to deserters at that time. They hunted them down and made a very public hanging of them. Yeah. He went on the run, and this group of runaway African-American slaves that were in the swamp took him in. And instead of sitting back in the swamps, he, along with other white farmer deserters that came and joined them, he built this night company and got munitions and said, let's take the fight to them. And he did. So he led a rebellion during the Civil War. And then the amazing thing is after the war's over and after Reconstruction's done in 1876, and a lot of things went in different versions back to how they were before the war.
Right. People were enslaved again.
In different ways,
yeah.
They sure were. And the Klan uprises, and he marched freedmen in to vote, even though their votes weren't getting recognized. He continued to fight on behalf of African American rights until he died at 94 years old. So that's where he really became a giant. So his first selfish defense of him and his family and his neighbor turned into a very selfless, almost cause after the war, and for 40 years after the war. He lived in an interracial community. He wrote his own constitution, starting with, if you can stand on two legs, you're a man. And he fought for the rights of African Americans till the day he died. And he still went down in defiance by being buried next to his black wife, Rachel Knight, which that was against the law. That's who Newt Knight is.
Well, it was also one of the things that has made it probably complicated, particularly for Southern historians, to tell his story is, for 100 years after the Civil War, at least, the fact that he married Rachel, who was black, was a big problem for them.
Yeah. Well, in what year was it? 1950, which we flash forward in our story to Davis Knight, Newt's grandson, who's in Mississippi trying to marry a white woman. Now, he looks, by all appearances, white. He does. But that was one of the early and first interracial marriages in the state of Mississippi. His grandson and his bride, 50.
It also occurs to you watching the movie, because so much of it is about, there's the Civil War part, but then so much of it is about Reconstruction, what you were saying, that there's not a lot of, the stories of Reconstruction also haven't been told very thoroughly in pop culture because there's no ending to it. And
there's a verb.
Yeah.
Reconstruction's a verb. That's a term that came to me very early that just gave me a lot of incentive. And look at what happened at the end of Reconstruction. As we just said earlier, a lot of things went back to how they were before. The Union had, Civil War fatigue. They're like, we're done, man. We're going back north. And they sort of abandoned the African American in a lot of ways in the South. And a lot of things went back to how they were in different versions. And Reconstruction's a verb. It ended there. Now, Newt deeded Rachel in 1876 because he saw what was coming. Deeded her 160 acres, 40 times 4, right at the end of Reconstruction, because I think he saw what the landscape held going forward.
Was this a story that you were familiar with before?
Never heard of it.
I hadn't either.
I've not met many people who have heard it.
Yeah.
Well, just part of the reason of getting into it. I mean, I read the script, and as an actor looking at scripts, I read this and I said, boy, this lives and deserves to be made into a film, even if it's fiction. And then to understand that it's actually true just made it feel there was freedom in the responsibility and also in the incentive of like, no, we need to make this movie. We need to go share this great story and this piece of American history that nobody that I've talked to really knows about.
When you were making the film, and especially when it was in post, there was so much. You became aware of a kind of racism that you almost weren't aware existed before. There has been so much racist rhetoric bandied around lately in our culture, and during this presidential election. Did it make you feel like now was a great time for this, or was it a little too close to home?
No, I mean, it did. I couldn't help but feel a certain very vital relevance. I mean, look, our story is set in the 19th century. It is about that time of the Civil War and afterwards. But there are issues that are definitely center stage here today. I'm not going to go into what all those are. I think every viewer can sit there and take their own meaning of how it's relevant today. I think one of the underlying things that is true that I realize is that freedom's been something that people have fought for since long before the Civil War. And I'm pretty damn sure it's going to be something that they're going to be fighting long after next year. I think it's something that is a process that we'll go through. Yes, we're evolving in it, but I think it will be a continuous work that we got to do.
You and I both grew up in the South. I was a couple of years ahead of you, but really about the same time, a lot in the 70s. And there comes a time, I think everybody who grew up in the South in that era, where you realize that so much of what people consider acceptable about their views on race are really not acceptable at all. When did you realize that there was just too much prevailing stuff that was wrong?
When did I realize that? Look, I've seen people and heard people misinterpret the Bible and maybe not treat someone of a different race in the right way, and not on the merit of the man that they were talking to, but on the color of their skin. I've seen that firsthand in Longview, Texas, where I was raised. It was highly segregated. The school I was in was 60% black, but there was the other side of town. And you didn't go over there, they didn't come over here. And it was unsaid. It wasn't really spoken about, but that's pretty much it was understood. I noticed a lot of it, and this happens with the great thing about travel. A lot of times you find out more about where you're from when you leave where you're from. So I was an exchange student in Australia in 1988 to 89. And that year away, I was able to look back at America. And one of the big things for me was race relations at that time. I remember thinking that what I was supposed to do in Australia was to leave there and go to South Africa and help free Steve Biko. I didn't end up doing that, but boy, I sure felt like it became very clear to me a racial divide in America, and I saw it much more clearly once I was in Australia, looking back at where I was from. And a lot of times you don't notice it when it's in your front yard or in your own community.
So growing up in Longview, when you were a kid, did you think ever as a kid that you wanted to be an actor?
No.
What did you want to be?
A Washington Redskin running back, and then, a conductor of symphonies. And I still got maybe a chance to do that later on in life. Or, Steve Irwin, was always a great idea. And then I had thought about teacher for a while, but then I found a job where I can be all of those for just a few months, then quit.
You don't have to fully commit.
No.
Or learn the music to be a conductor.
Learn it enough to pull it off, but yeah, get away with it.
I met you 20 years ago on the set of A Time to Kill.
Canton, Mississippi.
In Canton, Mississippi. And I was just there doing a story on A Time to Kill, and you were, of course, this new guy. And I remember if someone had said to me, after it hit and then you became, famous, I mean, globally famous pretty much overnight.
Over the weekend.
Over the weekend. People would ask me what you were like. And, I always said, well, he's very focused. He's a very serious guy. And I'm sure that you were out at night doing things that a 25 or 26-year-old would do. But I described you as something very different than what you for years you were known as something else. Now, I think your image is caught up with you. People see you as a serious, focused guy who can still have a good time.
Sure.
But there has been a big shift in perception.
Right. Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, look, I always had as many pages earmarked and notes taken in every romantic comedy and shirtless picture I did. There was many, I don't take any more notes now. But the work ethic's always been an important thing for me. If just, here's the thing, based on sheer embarrassment of not being able to do my job as well as possible.
Right.
Have I gotten better at my job? I hope so. Been doing it longer. I'm trying to cut my handicap, as I've always liked to say.
Yeah.
But I know how to work maybe more constructively. I know how to get out of trouble if I'm in a pinch, or if I'm feeling too much tension, or if I'm hung up one day at work. I've got some tricks to get out of it. But work ethic's never been something that I lacked in, basically out of sheer embarrassment, because I've showed up one time. I showed up unprepared.
What was that?
Well, it's a great story. Check this out. So, I do Dazed and Confused. All right. I'm not an actor. I'm going to film school. I'm in the right bar at the right time. I get cast in that film. I get called up to set one night to do makeup and wardrobe test. I'm not supposed to be in the scene tonight. All right, but I get called up there. I step out of the trailer. Richard Linklater, the director, goes, "Man, this is great. You want to shoot this scene? We'll improvise it." I'm like, "Yeah." We go shoot it. Boom. All of a sudden, 3 lines turns into 3 weeks' work. I go from there. I go do Boys on the Side and film Angels in the Outfield. Well, Boys on the Side was a very sort of constricted, tight role where I was playing Abraham Lincoln, this cop who took his name very seriously. And for about a year and a half after that role, I found that I'd get call back, but not get the role, not get the part. And I kept leaving auditions going, "You're being too tight, McConaughey. You're being too tight. You need to just really hang it out there in the audition and either just screw up and be a fool, but let's find out." And so I got cast in this independent feature, and I'm not going to say the name of it. I get cast, and I get this bright idea. You know what? I got to go back to how I began. When I didn't know any of the script, I didn't have anything written. I just knew my man, and I showed up in a situation, and I just handled it. So I get the script. No, not going to read it. But I know who I'm playing.
The director must have loved you.
He doesn't know. I'm not telling anybody. I'm not telling you at this time. This is my new bright idea.
It's a great idea.
So I'm like, I know who I am. I know what the conflict is. I know who's trying to get past me, and I'll just handle it. So I show up on the set that day, and right before about to go, I'm like, okay, I know who I am, but maybe I'll just take a peek at the sides, just to get an idea. Because I know my man, when I read these sides, if it's written well, I'll be like, obviously, that's exactly what I'd say. So I get the sides, and we're just about to shoot. Can I get about 12 minutes?
All these
You know
lines.
why? 4-page monologue in Spanish.
Oh no! No.
Oh yes! I got a bead of sweat came up on the back of my neck, and it started to drip down my back. And for whatever reason, I asked for 12 minutes because in my mind, I thought that's enough time to actually learn this, but not enough time to be inconsiderate to the crew.
Oh my gosh!
It was not that inconsiderate to the crew, but it was definitely not enough time to learn it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I learned that day, no. You prepare your ass off, and then you learn to loosen up. Then you throw it all out. But that was my bright idea, and I learned from it, and it was quite embarrassing.
So what happened? Did you get fired? Did you?
No.
Did they just give you the time to do it?
No, I did the scene, and I stuck with it, and I haven't talked to the director, but I think he thought that I just made some interesting choices.
So did the movie? Did it ever come out?
I think so. I've
film?
never seen it. I don't know.
You don't want to see it.
No, I'm old enough on that. I'll see it one day when I get the courage to.
So, A Time to Kill, you were saying over the weekend, it just happened.
From that Friday to Monday, yeah, my life was different.
That kind of overnight, it's like suddenly you were, mid-20s, superstar. How did that change your relationships with friends, family, women? How did it impact those relationships?
Well, all right, friends, my good friends were with it, all excited, and we were all enjoying that together. I had some friends that I wasn't that good of friends with who all of a sudden were like, hey, what happened to me? And I'm like, well, we weren't that good of friends to begin with. That's not fair. Family, family was great. I've got a brother who doesn't want anything to do with it, didn't like the attention. I've got another brother who's a big ham and loved it and was like, I want to be right in the middle of it.
Is that Rooster?
And then I got Rooster. And then I got a mother who, knows that all of my talents came from her, so she needs to be up there, and she didn't get her chance to be in the Golden Girls, so now's her chance. So come on with it. And I think the challenge for me was it was brand new for me. Like now I can laugh about it. And over the last 15 years, been able to say, yeah, Mom, come on, whatever you want to do, get in it, do it. You know what I mean? But back then I was like, hang on, let me figure this out first. And I remember telling my mom, some things have showed up in the press that you've said, if you can just check with me. I want you to talk, if you can just check with me. And
what did she say?
She was saying nice things, but I could tell she was liking it. Okay? K-Mac was was enjoying this. So I said, just do me a favor and just, if anybody comes to you and wants to do an interview, just check with me first. Let me vet them first. I have a publisher. They vet those people. She's like, I got it. You're right. I'm sorry. It's not my place. 8 days later, I get a phone call, 7 o'clock. Matthew, turn on hard copy. Your mom's on the show. She's got a camera. She's got a guy and a cameraman walking through your bedroom. She just said that you slept with this girl and said her name in this bed. She says she caught you playing with yourself in this shower over here and all this stuff. And I'm going, no! I turn it on. There's my mom giving a tour. And I call Mom and I go, Mom, what are you doing? She goes, oh, nothing. I go, you're watching the show that you gave an interview. She's like, how'd you know? I'm like, Mom, how did I know? She was like, but he was such a nice guy. And I was just telling him. And I go, you see that camera? That's millions of other people. She's like, you caught me. I was like, yeah, I caught you. I just asked you not to. So we went through our phases there, and all of our stuff was fun and innocent, but still it was like, Mom, loose lips can sink ships. Let me handle my narrative and let me get used to doing this right now before you go off speaking for me or showing people my bedroom and stuff like that. Look, the other thing after that, the main thing here was the main dislocated, the oddest thing. I didn't meet strangers anymore.
Right. Harder to make friends.
Harder to observe, which is what my job is. Harder to observe real, honest humanity. Because no one's acting. Now you're known. Like I said, I've told this story before. I walked the 3rd Street Promenade that Friday before that Time to Go came out. 4 people were looking at me, 396 didn't give a damn who I was. That Monday, it inverted. 396 were staring at me, 4 weren't. So all of a sudden, I'm checking my fly, checking my nose, what's up, and the world was a mirror. So I didn't meet strangers anymore. So I had to find places in other parts of the globe that I went off to on my own, where I was not known, where they didn't know anybody but the name I introduced myself as, and the merit that I gained over that month of a trip with myself was who they met at the beginning and who said goodbye at the end, and who I was in that 30 days. And I needed that. I think everybody needs that, some sort of autonomy for just a healthy spirit, and I needed it. So I took it.
There was A Time to Kill, and then Robert Zemeckis casting you in Contact,
Yep.
and Steven Spielberg
Amistad.
casting you in Amistad.
Yep.
And then there was a time, sometime around 1999, when from the outside looking in, it looked like a lull. And there were some movies that weren't big successes. There was the bongo playing incident that I know you love people to ask you about. But what occurs to me is during that time when you got, not every movie's going to be a hit,
Yep.
not all the press is going to be good. You were also turning 30,
Yep.
which is a pretty profound milestone.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about that time period, turning 30 and wondering where your career was going and where you were going?
Well, what was it at that time, turning 30? The 40s were much more of a demarcation for me than the 30s, which I think is consistent whether you're in this business, you're me or not. As a man, the 40s are where you really start to customize. 30s, I think, were more about process of elimination to get where you want to go. 40s are about, no, I don't need to eliminate anymore. I'm going to choose and not ask permission and create my own path and do things that do naturally turn me on. One, in the way I was raised, and some people say it's a Southern thing, so maybe you know what I'm talking about, but you probably know what I'm talking about, whether it's a Southern thing or just a human thing. One, I'm got a career. I'm making a living at it. So you learn to be thankful for just that. But maybe I didn't feel as involved with my career. Maybe I was too, because you have to get by. Part of growing up is you have to get by being impressed with whatever you're doing. You've got to be respectful of it, but you have to get past being impressed. You can't do a good interview if you're overly impressed with the person you're talking to. You got to be involved, and it's got to be even level, right?
Yeah.
Same for, I think, for me as an actor, I'd be really involved with my career and ask myself those questions. What is it I want to do? And again, at that time, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I was eliminating things that I did not want to do, though. And sometimes by process of elimination, you start to single out the stuff, the places you go that don't pay back residuals, the choices you make that maybe don't pay off and make your life more satisfactory down the line, and you end up with more things in front of you that do give back to you. So that's what a lot of my 30s were about, but I didn't go off. I've never been a hasty one to go and get nervous about like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was taught and understood very early in this business, lean horse, long ride. Stay in the game, and it'll find you or you'll find it if you want to calibrate and make a change.
Then, right, during your 30s, really it was The Wedding Planner and then How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yeah.
You became the romantic comedy king. And you did, there was other really interesting stuff that you did during that time, from Frailty, 13 Conversations About One Thing.
Right.
But you really became known and successful in these romantic comedies.
Sure did.
Which I think, I added them up. You made something like $750, $800 million.
How to Lose a Guy is still a gift that keeps on giving.
Is it real?
Things show up in the mailbox every month from How to Lose a Guy.
That's nice.
I applaud that. Yeah, those were I called those Saturday characters. We're talking about Free State of Jones. It's a Monday morning character. You go to work. We're gonna break a sweat. Those are about not breaking a sweat. Those are about keeping it buoyant. Not if you get serious and go to reality in those things, you sink that ship in a romantic comedy. And I quite enjoyed doing those. And I had done a bunch and they were working, but that became sort of the majority of what I was getting offered. That and some action comedies. Sahara we did, which was written to be a failure, but it made 63 or something. It wasn't a big failure. It just didn't. I actually think we could re-release that thing and it could do all right. But the things that were succeeding were the romantic comedies.
Yeah.
So I would do 13 Conversations, I'd do We Are Marshall, do Frailty, do Sahara, but what was popping its head above the waterline were the romantic comedies. And I was quite enjoying them. But after a while, I think I just said, look, there's only so much I can do in those, and the ones I would be reading were a different version of the same story. Boy meets girl, they're going to get in an argument, girl's got to go, guys chase her down, whether it's a bridge or on a moped or we're swimming across the lake, get her, and they get back together and we're out of there. And so you know how it's going to end, but can you enjoy getting there? So they're about rapport. You've got to have the right male-female lead. They've got to joust the right way. Yeah. One thing that really worked in How to Lose a Guy was the audience was in on jokes that one of the characters on screen was not in on. So they're rooting for Kate because McConaughey doesn't know he's about to get duped. Oh, they're rooting for McConaughey because the audience knows that Kate doesn't know she's about to get duped. And that's part of the fun engagement of those for people.
I love hearing you talk about it because when a couple of years ago when everybody was talking about the McConaissance, it was usually those movies were written about by critics who liked the other stuff better. They liked Dallas Buyers Club, and
Right.
the romantic comedies were dismissed. But it's one of the most difficult things to do from a writing perspective, from an acting perspective. It's a hard genre to crack. And you managed to crack
Yeah.
it quite a few times.
And I did crack it a few times, and they worked, and people liked them, and people saw them, and they were box office successes. I was having a good time making them. Like I said, I think the hard part, and why they're not for everybody, or at least not for everybody, you have to be in a certain headspace for them, is if you go, no, I want to go to reality here. No, you're going the wrong way. This thing is skipping across a cloud, and we have to keep just skipping across a cloud. Films I've been doing lately, I can go as deep into reality and humanity as I want.
Yeah.
My basement is as low as I want to go. I can cry as hard, I can laugh as loud, I can love as hard, I can be as full of rage, as deep as I want to go. I can also blow the ceiling off of it and show as much joy as I want to show, as much happiness. So the ceiling in the basement in a drama is much more akin to saying, yeah, you've got as much bandwidth in here to move as you want. Romantic comedy is not that. It's on the upper side. From the ceiling's high, but the basement is well above what you do in a drama, so you have to keep it up there and you have to keep it adrift.
You don't want to drag it down.
No, you'll sink it. You'll kill it.
Yeah.
If you go too deep at the end of Act 1 in the conflict, the audience never recovers. You can't proverbially hit that hard. You can't be that mad. You can't be that angry in those, because you sink. It takes people too long to get back with it.
So one of the things that all of those films did was put you in movies with a lot of like incredibly memorable actresses,
Yep.
right? And not only in those, but in other things, you've worked with great women. And I want to do a little, just name association. I'm going to read out some names.
Name association. Okay.
Tell me the first thing that comes to mind, or
Okay.
whatever. Sandra Bullock.
Could run her own country.
Did you have the biggest crush on Sandra Bullock when you were doing A Time to Kill?
I developed a crush on Sandra Bullock.
She's so irresistible.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're around her.
Yeah. She's one of a kind.
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster. And that great line she said, what she tell me, she said, well, deliberate was always a word. Deliberate. I remember her coming on and she'd have a big scene. And she was like, you're going to get like 3 takes. That's it. I know exactly what I want to do. Or she acted like she knew exactly what she wanted to do, and she did it. I remember she gave me some great advice. She was like, some people over choreograph. Don't over choreograph a performance. I remember talking about, because I always keep a diary during writing. She was like, keep that innocent sort of curiosity. She goes, because the longer you're in this business, that's what people lose. She goes, keep that innocent curiosity of taking your notes and just being curious about this whole process, because a lot of people, the longer they do it, they don't enjoy the process. It becomes a clock-in job. They come to work, do it, get their paycheck, and go home. She goes, just keep that. And I have tried to maintain that, to enjoy the experience, the making of the movie.
And she's a worker.
Yeah.
She never lost it, even being, and most child stars don't manage to keep that up. She's
Right,
kind of-
but
she's really impressive.
she walks her own line,
Yeah.
and keeps all the outside stuff at an arm's distance. Yeah.
Jennifer Lopez.
Quad threat. Quad threat. Jennifer could do a take. First take, minute 1. Second take, minute 2. Third take, minute 1. And it would not vary more than a second off. I mean, she had it down. She knew all the beats and had it down. And was very wonderfully hard worker too. Very, very hard worker. Lopez shows up, she goes to work. Conscious knows. I mean, have you ever seen a bad shot
No.
of her?
No.
Bam. I mean, she knows. She
No,
knows,
even she could be in
knows
this
where it
room and there
is.
wouldn't be a bad
No.
angle. You can stand anywhere. Yeah. It's
She
weird.
knows. She knows where it is and owns it. And I really like that about her.
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. Kate's fun.
Twice you worked with.
Yeah, Kate's fun. Fool's Gold and How to Lose a Guy. Kate's fun. What would I say is one word about her? Well, yeah, fun. It is. She's got. You can see where she has her mother in her, and she's up for a. She's got enough that rock and roll in her. That it's she can sling from the hip.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yep, Sarah Jessica. Now, Sarah Jessica is who I had a crush on growing up.
Really?
Yes, Honeymoon in Vegas.
Fell in love with her on Honeymoon in Vegas.
Yes, and I did let her know that. I don't know if it was the first day of shooting or the last day of shooting, but I did let her know that, absolutely.
Did you ask her out?
No, she was, I think, married or married at the time.
That would have been inappropriate.
Gentleman, would have been. It doesn't mean I couldn't have a crush on her.
Well, I'm glad you controlled yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner. You know what? Here's one of the things I love about Jennifer. No matter where we see each other, and it's usually at a big public Hollywood event where the conversations and the gratuities and the mannerisms can all be emotion. Hey, hello, left cheek, right cheek, how are you? I'm great. We've never had a conversation like that. I asked Jennifer, how you doing? Stops, and she answers the question and says it for real. Reminds me of, like, they said George Bush Sr. would always go, how you doing, President Bush? About an 8.2 today. It always gave the direct answer of how she was doing, and Jennifer's always done that. And, you know, no attitude with her. She means it. She cares. She cares about people. She cares about family, and I could trust Jennifer with anything.
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese. Now, Reese and I know Reese better off screen probably than I do on. We only had a couple of scenes together in Mud, which thankfully she came on and did that film. Look, Reese is somebody who, what's the name of her production? Type A?
Yeah, Type A.
For a reason. For a reason.
Exactly.
She's going to drive through and make her own path. And she's a worker. She goes to work. And she's going to make her own path, and she's very ambitious that way and makes it happen.
And then from Free State of Jones, Gugu and Batha Raw.
Yeah.
I loved you two together.
You did.
She's extraordinary.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know, I knew of, I got up to speed with Gugu's work when Gary was talking about going to her for the role, and enjoyed her work and saw someone trying different things. And a young actress coming up and trying different things and inhabiting the character she was in. We, this relationship, this love story that Newt and Rachel have, and Gugu plays Rachel in the film, you know, is a really interesting thread through this story. They get married, they have a child. That child, as we talked about earlier, looks mostly white. She's got a great scene in this film where she talks about, let's hand our child over to your first wife. If she raises our child, and Newt's completely against this on principle. She says, no, but if she does, maybe he'll be able to walk with his head high. Maybe he'll be able to walk as a free man. But if I raise him, it'll be much harder. She was wonderful in that scene. And anyway, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film that we got to do together.
2006, you met Camilla.
Yep.
In the middle of making all kinds of romantic comedies, you found the love of your life. Do you remember the first time you guys met?
Damn right.
Where was it?
Jones, a club on Sunset Boulevard. And I'm not a club guy.
Right.
But this night I was a club guy. Right?
And why did you go to the club that night? Who took you there?
No, I went with my buddy, I was with my buddy Lance and some other friends, and we went out, single men having a good time. We had a great day at the beach. It was a summer. It was one of those summers where like every day was just like another green light. We were we were getting work done, but we were playing hard, and we were staying in shape, and it was just I was getting along with my family fine. My friends were all doing good. I think it was one of those good summers that just you're like, oh, this is easy, just keep going. And we went out, and I was making margaritas at the table, and out of the corner of my eye, this sort of aqua green figure went sort of floating across the frame about 20 feet in front of me. My eye went up, and I remember what came out of my mouth. I didn't say, who is that? I went, what is that? And then that went and sat down, and I tried to get that's attention. And as I was trying to get that's attention across the room, it went in my head. I was like, this is not the kind of woman you call over across the room, McConaughey. Get your ass out of the chair and go get her, which I did.
You were spoiled by that point.
No, I was just
oh yeah.
Come on, I was trying to wave her over. And I was offering good margaritas, and I could make a good margarita. So I went over and I asked her her and her friends to come sit down, which every man should know that's a good thing to do, invite the friends, and that's the way they'll come on their own, which she did. And she spoke Portuguese over the loud music, and I spoke and understood. I understood Portuguese better than I've ever understood her in our 9 years of dating. I also spoke the best Spanish I've ever spoken, which was close enough to Portuguese that night to be the international language of love.
Why do you think that was the one? There were beautiful women were around you all the time, and for many, many years have been very interested in you. What was the chemical reaction that you had?
Well, I mean, I believe two things, and before I go to chemical reactions, which I don't know if I'll share those. Got to be the right person, but it has to be the right time. You could meet. I could have met her 15 years ago, and it wouldn't have. Maybe not. Wouldn't have been. You know, how many people in your past have you met where you go, oh, if I would have actually been hanging out with them at the time I was ready, would they have been right? I don't know the answer. We don't know the answer to those questions. It was the right time for me. I was not looking. I was very happily single and healthily single. So I was not looking. I was sleeping well. I was spiritually sound. I was good with hanging with me. But we met, and the self-respect she had for herself, the way I understood her and her relationship with family, her own family, the way she respected me but never took anything for granted, the way, you know, they were not putting on any airs, no airs whatsoever. And you know where you catch the airs, you catch them in the silent moments when they're not talking, not in what they say, and there was none of that. So we went out on our first date 3 nights later, and I knew then that I said the next night after that I wanted to go on another date. The next night after that I wanted to go on another date, and I've been wanting to go on a date with her for the last 9 years, and not with anybody else.
And it happened fast.
Yeah, well, we had children first.
Yeah.
2 of our children before we got married, before she handed me the invitation to our wedding. It was like, because I was all for marriage. I was just like, when are you going to get to it? She was like, when are you going to get to it?
Yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, we'll find a good time. And
Was
she like,
was
no,
living?
we're going to make time.
What are the kids like? So Levi, your first, turns 8 this year.
Right.
What are they like?
He's the architect. He's the one. Levi observes, Vita sees, Livingston does. That's how those 3 work. He's the architect, he's the inquisitor, he's the most considerate person I know. But he loves to measure the anatomy of the situation, and very much a perfectionist like me. Vita just makes sense of situations. She cuts right to the nut of the answer real quick. Levi and I will be trying to figure out the mystery of where the lost keys are, the car keys, and coming up with scenarios. Where was the jacket you wore yesterday? Have you checked the pockets? Let's go check. Vita's over in the corner drawing something, and then we go, wait, they're not there. What about, let's check the counter. Maybe David, the guy at the house, put him in the drawer on the key ring. We're checking over there. And this goes on for 15 minutes, and all of a sudden Vita will come by and go, look what I drew, Popeye. You look at it, and you go, oh, that's great, Vita. And she goes, glad you like it. Have you checked the ignition? And walks off. Sure enough,
And there it is.
You know? And then Livingston's the doer. He's the monarch.
Camilla had a pretty big impact, you have said, on your career and what you want to do professionally. And other people have said that she sort of empowered you to really think about what you want to do at a time when you wanted to make a change.
Yeah, well, I remember wanting to make a change. And anytime I want to do something, even if I feel like there's not enough time, or, oh, I don't think I can make that many films back to back to back, she's the one that goes, do you want to? like, yeah. She goes, well, then grab them, do it. She's always been like that. So, no, I can't make it. I've never been able to make any excuses with her, and she wouldn't allow it. That's part of why she loves me and I love her. But the other thing is you find your partner. You cut a lot of options out of your life, thankfully. Again, the process of elimination, you eliminate a lot of things, a lot of possibilities out there. And so you're much more focused just by the equation of 1 and 1, you're together, and the two of you are partners. So, you know, did that make it more secure to sit there and really go, I've got something that is going on that's of great import in my life, and it's new, and it's a woman I love, and so therefore maybe am I able to be more specific and understand what it is I want to do with my career or make a change? Probably so. I'm sure it helps. And then kids also compound that.
Yeah.
You really get selfish, and I mean that in the best way possible. I'm a big fan of that word. I don't mean at the expense of others. I find that I can be much more selfless when the more selfish I am. But you really start looking after yours and yourself and your family. So that time for me was, I said, look, I'm going to take a break from doing the things I have been doing, because I feel like I remember having saying, I feel like I could do it, that script, I feel like I could do it tomorrow. And then I said, well, don't be a prude. That's okay to read something you got, feel like I could do that tomorrow. I was like, okay, that's fine, but I want something that I'm feeling like I can bring an original take to, something that's going to scare me. I remember saying that. I want something that's going to scare me, something that's going to make me go, ooh, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I can't wait to find out. So I said, I'm going to take off. I talked to her. I checked with my money man. I said, if I don't work for a while, is rent paid? He said, rent's paid. You've invested your money.
Well, thanks to the checks from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Those help pay the rent, still do. Thank you much. But I didn't know how long it was going to go on.
Yeah.
And it went on for over 1.5 years of saying no to the same scripts I was getting before I think I became some people's new good idea. Mm-hmm. So I've always said this, I didn't rebrand. I unbranded and became sort of an anonymous free agent who people hadn't seen in a while. And then became, I think, some directors, oh, you know what a fresh, new good idea would be? What about McConaughey for Killer Joe, Magic Mike? Now, Mud was already written by Jeff Nichols for me prior to that. But that's when I started doing those pictures. And Lincoln Lawyer was something I had my hand and been attached to for many years.
But that was a big transitional movie.
Yeah.
It seemed.
Yeah, it was. And that was something that, and I got off to that so much. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. I love the stakes. I love the consequences that are in this kind of story, this kind of drama thriller.
Do you feel like it is certainly written about this way, and from the outside looking in, it seems this way, that you were discovered once in 1996 when A Time to Kill came out, and 92. You were sort of in a
92. No, well, discovered once in a bar in 92.
Well, yeah. You were discovered
96,
then.
Time to Kill.
Right, 96, A Time to Kill, and then again in 2013. When Dallas Buyers Club, Wolf of Wall Street, True Detective, all of that happened again. All of a sudden, it felt like we discovered Matthew McConaughey all over again. Did it feel that way to you?
No,
like
but I take that. I mean, the way you put it, I'm sure receiving that as a compliment. For me, it felt like changing gears.
Yeah. But
I never got out of the car.
Right.
Just a part of the same road trip.
I didn't mean it as a compliment.
Well, I took it as a compliment.
Joking.
I don't care how you do it. That's how it was received.
No, it was, for people who'd been fans, particularly for me, because I'd met you in the very beginning, it was one of the most, and as a fan of movies and a fan of yours, it was really a great time. It was a great time for a lot of people, and you had engendered so much goodwill through all the romantic comedies and everything, and your own sort of persona, that I think it was a kind of a great moment for everybody when you stood up and won the Oscar. People were genuinely happy.
I felt that, and I still feel that, and I'm happy to say I felt that because I didn't know, and I have I think I have generated goodwill over the years. My instincts have never been, nor have I shown them to be. I'm usually happy for others' success, even if they got a job I wanted. I can't really help myself, but wanting people to do good at what they do. I don't know. I think people kind of feel that. I've never been one that really felt like I needed to raise myself by putting others down or seeking bad will on anyone else. I always, was it a restart? I always felt it was more of again, lean horse, long ride. I never got nervous at any of those points like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can go find a job. I can go find it. It may not even be in acting, but I can go do something, even if I lose my nose and, you know what, get a patch over my eye. I'll find something to do. But yeah, I just looked at it as more of gear changes. But I understood where reconnaissance came from, and it's been rediscovered. But I was never gonna parlay into that narrative and go, I know, it's a rebirth. No, I was never going to do that.
When your kids are old enough to Google you, they may already be.
Just tomorrow.
What do you want to tell them about what they find? What do you want to tell them before they find it and after they find it?
They can go on. They can freewheel into that. I don't need to contextualize that for them before they go on. As far as I know, I'll say this. You know, I haven't done it yet, but I'm real close. I'm looking forward to sitting down with my son and watching Mud.
Yeah.
Because that's the one my father, I believe, would have been like, hey, buddy, you want to see a good movie? Let's watch this one together. I just went and did a couple of my first two voiceovers and animated features because I kept getting asked by others, what are your kids' favorite movies? I'm like, Popeye hadn't made many movies.
Yeah,
Kiddos
Killer Joe.
Killer Joe and Dallas Buyers Club. Hang on. There's a few scenes in there that we're just not ready. I don't have the energy to explain them yet.
It'll be a while before they see some of yours.
And then they were asking, when could we see that? We were on the set. And I was like, yeah, you were on the set, but I picked particular days for you to be on the set. We're not ready to see that one. So it was time for me to go make something for them.
So what's coming up next?
I've got Gold coming out at the end of the year.
And that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, it's a wild ass story.
Is it based on a true story? Or is
but we fictionalized it quite a bit and hold no punches about that. It is definitely fictionalized. There's a Briec scandal in the late 80s where these two guys found gold in Indonesia, and J.P. Morgan, huge investors, came in and invested millions and millions of dollars into it, and it turns out that it was a scam. There was a thing called salting, where you salt the mines. You could shave off a little of your gold wedding ring. Someone finds it. Oh my God, we got gold. Well, everyone bet on this story. They bet on the story.
A gigantic scam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the story is, well, who got away with it? Who was in on it? And fascinating story. The kind of film that I'm like, I got 20 choices. I'm like, I'm seeing that first. Original creation. Stephen Gagin came out and directed it. He hasn't directed the feature in a while. We got him in there to direct it. Myself, Edgar Ramirez, Bryce Dallas Howard. Love the story, and I've seen the picture, and I absolutely love the picture. It's so much damn fun.
That's great. You gained weight for that role.
I got up to 217 pounds. I put on 90 pounds from 135 in Dallas Buyers Club. Got on 90 pounds. And trust me, 217 was fun. I kind of missed 217. My family misses 217.
Really? Why?
I was Captain Fun. Pizza nights on Friday night. Usually.
All the time.
Now it was pizza night. Any night. Milkshakes, yes. Cheeseburgers for breakfast, absolutely. It was all a good idea. Any indulgence was a good idea for 3 months.
Wow. And where are you now?
185.
And was that hard to lose the weight?
Yeah, the hardest part's getting over it. The same thing with losing it down to 135. You get hung up on the decades. I got hung up at 210 for 2 weeks. Then once you get to 208, fly down to 201. Hung up at 201 for 2 weeks. Once I got to 198, fly down to 191, and then hung up for 2 weeks. And so finally I got down to 185. I'm like, great, now I can eat.
That's where I go. And you only have one suit that fits.
I'm in it.
You're in it.
One of the animated films
Sure.
that I did, as I said at the time when my kids were saying, when can we see a movie that you've done? And I didn't have many on the slate, as you know. Kubo came along. Kubo and the Two Strings is the first animated picture that I've done. And I got to voice Samurai Beetle. And it's done, Leica did it. And it's a really, really wonderfully well told story about how you gotta work to make the third act of your life have a happy ending. You have to, because it's about a boy who can't ever finish the story. Can't ever finish the story until he comes in to grips with his past, his ancestors who have left and gone away, and how do you keep them alive, their spirit alive, even though they're not here? And those will help you finish the third act of your story and have a happy ending. Really, really cool fable.
Do you have your kids in mind when you're sitting in the recording booth?
Yeah. Yeah, Samurai Beetle, and then I have one called Sing coming out, that Illumination did, and I'm a koala salesman who's got to keep the theater open. So those sessions were fun. I've never done them before.
You're a koala?
Yes.
And a
koala.
salesman?
Yes. Don't you? I mean, lead
Trying to keep the
pipe
theater.
cinch,
It
right?
sounds adorable.
Yeah.
And then another movie that people have been waiting years for, The Dark Tower.
Dark Tower, Stephen King novels. I'm about to go to South Africa and start shooting that. This is my first dive into what could possibly, with success, a franchise.
Yeah.
And it's my first dive into science fiction. So yeah, I'm playing the Man in Black.
But there was Interstellar and Contact. There was some science
I didn't
fiction.
say, yeah, but those, yeah, but why do they not feel science
Well,
fiction
this
as
is
much as
fantasy and
this is more fantasy,
future-
so to
yeah.
speak. Even though Nicolas Jarcel, the directors, were basing it very realistic. We're not going to be the Hobbit, or we're not going to be the Harry Potter versions. But Idris Elba and myself, he's the gunslinger. He's chasing me across the desert.
Yeah.
Come on.
This is called, do it fast, this is called the Kegel exercise.
Kegel exercise.
Fill in the blank.
Okay.
Close friends describe me as,
Loyal.
strangers describe me as,
Dude's got history on his shoulders.
only I know that I am.
Only I know that I am 5'11" 3/4.
My last meal would be what? I would eat it with whom?
Cheeseburgers with my hands.
The song that always makes me dance is,
My son's been playing a lot of Coldplay on his keyboard lately, and he can get me moving around with his version.
the movie I've seen the most times.
Movie I've seen the most times. Oh, Raising Arizona.
It may be heresy, but blank is overrated.
It may be heresy, but fake boobs are overrated.
I think I'm really good at,
I think I'm really good at doing two things at once. Better than doing one thing at once.
I think I'm really bad at,
I think I'm really bad at doing one thing at a time. I'm really bad at going, you know what? Let me think about that. No, I'm no good at going away to go, I'm going up to my office to think about something. No, I have to be, I'll have it in my mind and I'll go around, but it has to come to me. I'm good at thinking when I'm driving, but not at going, I'm going to go think of something. No.
I feel sexiest when I am.
Oh man, the sexiest a man feels is right after the birth of his child. Man's never more masculine than after the birth of a child.
I start every day by doing,
I have my tea in bed, and I start my day with 15 minutes with me.
my greatest extravagance is,
Face creams.
Face
I'm vain.
creams.
Yes.
there you go.
I'm vain.
It's part of the job.
Oh, I
you
love
can
it.
tell
I'm
yourself
a fan
that.
of vanity, man.
Yeah.
No, as Dennis Miller once told me, it's not vanity, Matty. It's commerce.
I love the smell of,
I love the smell of my the smell. Man, I love the smell of ribeyes on the grill in the backyard. Yeah.
What were you thinking about when you started laughing?
Well, it was something to do with the kids, but then I remember, you know what, no, not that, even they had bad breath in the morning, but I was going to say I love the sound of their laughter. That's my favorite sound, but the smell of ribeyes on the grill.
I could talk about blank for hours on end.
Sports.
And I can sum up my life in this bumper sticker.
I could sum up my life in this bumper sticker. Boy, you've teed me up just gloriously there. I'm just not going to give it to you. Because there already is a bumper sticker. There's T-shirts and dog bowls and flip-flops that I just keep living in. All right on them. But I'm going to sum up my life.
Oh, you already have summed up your life in a bumper sticker.
No. In process, baby. In process.
That's
not as
nice.
fun as those other two, but more accurate.
Wiser. Maybe.
More factual. ... Now, some people have et cetera. Sometimes et cetera has you.